What really shaped you the most while growing up?
Growing up years, I spent more time on a squash court than spending time on, in the classrooms of book. Squash taught me how to win, taught me how to lose, deal with pressure.
Sahil Vora was once India's top squash player. Now he's building one of the largest facility management firm in the country.
I was coaching a hedge fund manager over winter break when I didn't come back from Trinity College to India, and there was this gentleman by the name George Weiss, and he wanted squash lessons, so that led to my first job. But at the back of my mind, I always knew that at some point I'll come back to India.
So at 24, he packed up, left his job, moved back in with family, no plan, no paycheck.
You already knew what you were gonna build, and how did Sila came about?
Around 2009 when I moved back, security was actually a very, very important conversation people were having. I thought about starting a business which was in the security space. So I started selling CCTV cameras. That's actually what Sila started with. Again, my brother was in Singapore. He did a lot of work on figuring out the housekeeping side, and that's how we moved back. We built this together.
That one camera turned into 25,000 employees, 120 plus cities, and yes, Dhoni is now an investor.
We had Sahil Vora today. Sahil is the former national champion in squash. Today he's built Sila into one of the largest facility management real estate firm in India. They are planning to take it public in the next 2 to 3 years. We covered his early life, squash, what made him move to the US, what made him move back to India, the story behind Sila, the opportunities in real estate in India, his advice for those who are thinking about moving back to India, who is the outside of work, and much more. Sahil, so good to have you on the 1947 Rise podcast.
Thank you, Shiva. Excited to be here. Looking forward to it.
I was personally very, very excited for the reason that I'm finally getting to podcast somebody where I have something in common, which is sports. And you were one of the best squash player that India has seen. And moving forward to today, you've built Sila, which is one of the largest, it could be the largest facility management real estate firm in India. And now, of course, you have ventured into other verticals as well, which is recently you've gotten into real estate development. To start with, maybe Sahil, we're really a byproduct of our environment. What really shaped you the most while growing up?
So I grew up in Mumbai, and I had a reasonably privileged background, went to school in South Mumbai, and then ended up spending most of my childhood playing squash. And growing up years, I spent more time on a squash court than spending time on, in the classrooms or on my books. So squash has played a pivotal role in shaping me as a person, right? It taught me how to win, taught me how to lose, deal with pressure. And I think if I look back, that was something that has taught me a lot of lessons that I'm able to use today in life. It helped me get a passport to go to college and afford an education in the US, which is what I did post deciding not to turn professional athlete and taking the path of playing squash in college, and then I ended up staying there for some time. But I think that a good family upbringing, a Gujarati business family, and then coupled with spending a lot of time on a squash court really helped me shape my formative years.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate with what you mentioned, that sports really gave you the passport to get into the other side of it could be corporate or anything else that you've done.
My first job was actually because I was coaching a hedge fund manager over winter break when I didn't come back from Trinity College to India, and there was this gentleman by the name George Weiss, and he was, I think, in his late 50s or 60s, and he wanted squash lessons. So as a 20-year-old student, I used to wake up on a snowy day and give him squash lessons, and that led to my first job. So not only did squash get me to the US, it also got me my first job, and
Yeah.
As I said, a lot of life lessons.
I have another thing in common, my friend. I got my first job through tennis. I emailed somebody. He's a semi-celebrity investor in the US. I emailed him saying, "How about me as a professional tennis player? Give you a tennis lesson in exchange for your expertise in venture capital." And eventually he took a bet on me. But Sahil, the plan was for you. The plan was always to go move to the US, or how did that play out? And just walk us through your journey at Trinity College. And you mentioned how you got into hedge fund. You always wanted to work in hedge fund, or how did that play out?
So at some point, I made a decision not to turn professional athlete squash player. And Trinity was at that point the number one squash school probably in the world, definitely in North America. So I got recruited to go there, and that was step one of going to the US and exploring something that I had not initially planned to go to the US to study, but that was an opportunity that was presented to me, and I think that was a great decision because firstly my mentor and coach Paul Asiante, who's taught me a lot of life lessons, and till today, we're very close. He helped me a lot in thinking through my career and what I want to do in life, and just learning from him. So I think step one was going to the US, playing college squash, which was exciting. And then, as I said, George Weiss gave me the opportunity to work in finance, which is something that was interesting for me, and it definitely, working in New York City in your early 20s is exciting for anyone, and I had a lot of friends who were doing the same. But at the back of my mind, I was always quite patriotic, and always knew that at some point I'll come back to India. I think when I left India, it was around 2004, and the India Shining campaigns, it didn't really work out that well for the existing government, but you could see that there was this optimism, and I had it, being patriotic, that at some point I would come back. I did not know when, but the plan was always to go there, get some exposure, experience, and then probably come back.
So I think I heard in one of your interviews where you mentioned it was a very quick move for you, where within few days you decided, okay, I'm moving back. And you told your roommate, in few days I'm moving back. So what was that trigger or that reason where it just made you move back?
So yes, my roommate and one of my very close friends was not happy that I was moving back. We've grown up together actually, and we were roommates in New York. So it was around bonus season, and I did not want to be the person who had got a job by coaching George, and then obviously I earned my full-time job in the position in the company. He gave me an internship, but even then I didn't feel right to take a bonus and leave. So it was bonus coming up, and I wanted to tell my immediate boss at that time that I'm planning on going back. So I'm happy to not take the bonus. So the timing had to become quick because of that reason. It was in March of 2009. And I also knew that if I stayed much longer, you have these golden handcuffs, which a lot of my friends who did not come back from the US had, where you're making, six-figure salaries as a 22-year-old and a great life. And then it's very hard to move back once you're really stable. And as you grow older, I believe your risk appetite goes down. So at that point, it was a spontaneous decision. I'm glad I made it.
Got it. And so you came back in what, 2010?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
What were the initial few days were like? And you already knew what you were gonna build. And how did Sila came about? What was the founding story?
So the initial days are obviously not easy, because you come from a very cushy job and stability to many unknowns. Firstly, moving back to your family house, living in a joint family, and then not knowing what one will do for work. So what I did quickly was I started coaching squash just to keep myself occupied. So I started I built on the squash academy at CCI, which is a club I played at. to just keep myself busy in having something to do. And then I was ideating on jobs and on ideas, not jobs, sorry, on ideas of business ideas that could make sense. My first idea was actually to open a nightclub, which is quite funny, but I used to, with that roommate friend of mine, frequent some nightclubs in New York City, and I thought it would be a good idea to open a nightclub in my early 20s. I'm quite glad I didn't do that. And there's actually a funny story to this. So I went to an investor and I asked him for capital for this nightclub. It was called Pink Elephant. It was actually one of the hottest nightclubs in New York at that time. And he looked at me and he said, "You don't look like someone who's going to be a nightclub owner. So why don't you come back to me with a smarter idea?" And that's the same gentleman, Haresh Mehta, who gave us the seed capital to start Sila. And we had a great partnership with him, but I'm glad he gave me that advice and I used it. But yeah, it was interesting to come back. I knew it would take time. I mean, when you come back from America, a stable job, and I've told some of my friends that your curve of life is going like that, you got to be ready for that drop. And then you take kind of 2 steps back to take, 1 step back, to take 2 forward. That's what happened to me. And I was quite prepared for it. And I had time on my side. I was 24, 25 years old, not too many responsibilities. So it helps to come back when you're younger.
Yeah. And so what was the initial hypothesis of Sila? What were the early days like? How did you convince Rushabh to join you, or how did that play out? And who was your first large customer that really gave you the confidence? Okay, now we are onto something.
So an unfortunate incident in Mumbai had happened in 26/11. So security was actually a very, very important conversation people were having around 2009 when I moved back. And I thought about starting a business which was in the security space. And so I started selling CCTV cameras. That's actually what Sila started with. And then very quickly I understood that I was installing cameras at different premises. And I was doing this also using subcontractors. So I literally did not have any team. I was getting orders from various people and I would go to system integrators to go and install the cameras. But very quickly I learned that there was no one monitoring these cameras. So I thought it'd be a good idea to add security guards. And that's kind of how this facility management started. So CCTV, security guarding, housekeeping, and that's how it very quickly evolved into being facilities management. And when I knew that it needed to get into housekeeping and facilities management at that point, it's quite funny how as a kid you think, and my brother was in Singapore and I told him, I said, "Rush, it was funny, I can remember this call. I said, "Rush, that's a really clean city and they've got something right to do with housekeeping. So why don't you figure out what these guys do on keeping Singapore so clean and spick and span?" And my brother was 23, probably did some courses and he did a lot of work on figuring out the housekeeping side, and that's how he moved back. But he moved back very early in the journey, so we built this together.
Yeah. That's funny actually how you called him and asked him to learn what are the best practices around housekeeping and other services. And Sahil, along the journey, again, like, do you remember, like, or let's call it that way, when did you feel that you have the product market fit for the business you were doing?
So the one thing we were very convinced about when we started facilities management was that there's an large market size, right? It's a scalable opportunity. We always knew the challenging piece would be the operations of it, right? To recruit, train, retain, and retrain people. It's hard to say those 4 words together anyway, and it's even harder to do in reality, right? So the market size is growing. Every built environment is actually a potential client for us, right? So we always knew that there was a requirement for organized facilities management, and getting business was not a challenge from the early days, using networks, references, and we are lucky to have a very strong network in Mumbai. I think the challenge was making sure we're a high quality provider, right? So that is something that took some learning, because this is not something we had learned. And we did not want to recruit people from the industry to teach us some good habits, but bring in some bad habits too. So we consciously, built this and learned this on our own as a business, and very seldom hired from the industry. So I think early on we realized that there is a product market fit, or there's a service required, which is going from unorganized to organized. And I think we spent a lot of time on making sure that we're a high quality provider from early on.
Got it. And today you've scaled. I think you are in almost 125 cities. You employ almost 25,000 employees, and you've gotten into other verticals as well. Maybe Sahil, walk us through that phase, that journey. How did you get into advisory vertical, and then later on, how did you get into development phase?
Yeah. So it was always clear to us that we would move up the value chain in real estate. Facilities management was a great starting point, and it's today bread and butter for us. It's our largest business, and it's growing, and we continue to grow that business and focus on it. But we always wanted to move up the value chain on the project management, advisory, and then eventually development side of real estate, to then build an integrated real estate platform, right? And that's what we today look like. Once we stabilized the facilities business, probably 5-6 years in, we set up a joint venture actually with a US-based company to get into real estate advisory and project management. And that business has been incredibly insightful for us, because it's not as large as the facility management business, but the service we provide is we give diligence services to capital providers investing in real estate. So to a layman, it's basically doing the diligence on the technical side for a fund. So a fund would hire someone like us, they would hire lawyers, and they would hire financial consultants before they make an investment decision, right? So we look at the approvals, the cost to complete, the quality of the developer. So we provide a technical diligence. And that business over the last 7-8 years has given us a ton of asymmetric information about the real estate industry, right? We diligence about 150 deals a year. We're actively monitoring for these funds, 40, 50 investments every year. So we've learned a lot about real estate, right? We learned about how to invest in real estate, the risks in different projects, timelines, costs, approvals. So there's a ton of data that we've learned or gathered through being a service provider. And that kind of very organically led to being a developer, where after the IL&FS crash in 2018, we saw a lot of our clients on the advisory side stuck with positions which needed a little bit of problem solving, for lack of a better word, and they turned to us on few of these opportunities to say that why don't you, and we had been working with them and providing services, and they said why don't you step in and become the developer, right? So that's the genesis of us moving into development, which was we learned a lot from the advisory business, and then there was a crash and a special situation in 2018-19, which led us to getting some opportunities on the development side.
Don't do that. Yeah. And Sahil, how does the kind of like the scale looks like at Sila today? I think recently I noticed that you guys have crossed 1,000 CR on the facility side. Talk us about your other verticals as well.
Yeah, so the facilities business is north of 1,000 crores revenue annually, and growing at about 30% odd. So there's still, as I said in the beginning, a large market opportunity, and we're able to tap that well. on that business, we're focused on improving our operating metrics and seeing operating leverage and improving our margins. The advisory business is smaller, much smaller, and it's also growing at about 30-40%. But the numbers are minuscule, sub 5% of the facility number, just because it's a consulting advisory service. Those two put together form our real estate services business, which, as you may have read, we are looking to take public in the next 2 to 3 years. And then on the development side, the journey has been more slow and steady. From our learnings of being an advisory consultant, what we have realized is that real estate development is a multi-decade business. You build a brand and capability over many, many projects. We're just on our first 4 or 5 projects right now. We have about 3,000 crores of gross development value. So we're not small anymore, but, slowly scaling that business. And that's the plan. The plan is to steadily scale that business. It's something that I don't think can be built overnight. You build real estate brands, and some of the reputed brands have been in the market for a few decades and maybe 2 or 3 generations.
Got it. And you recently signed up Dhoni as an investor and as a brand ambassador. How did that come about, and why Dhoni, Sahil?
Why Dhoni is the easy answer. I mean, I've had immense respect for him, not only as a sportsman, but as a leader. And I don't say that now because, he's invested with us. And I'm a huge cricket fan. And April 2nd, 2011 was a memorable day where I was at the stadium and I was able to watch, Dhoni and the team help us lift the cup, and the respect I have for him is on few counts, right? So one is, I think he's an unbelievable leader, right? During his tenure as captain, we've seen a lot of great Indian cricketers who are playing for the team today or even retired. He's nurtured talent really well. Second is his temperament, right? It's so much to learn about being calm under pressure and being really, really collected at all times. And then lastly, I think he's, that leader who people trust and believe in, right? So I think there's so much to learn from him. So that was super exciting for us to know that we had the opportunity for him to invest with us. Sorry, how it happened is a funny story, actually. I have a friend of mine who's a menswear designer, and I was wearing one of his outfits at a wedding where he requested me to take some photos and post them online. And this is absolutely unlike me to take photos of some designer and post them online. But I happened to get a photo with Dhoni because he was standing there and we were having a conversation. And I said, okay, man, this friend of mine has asked me for a photo, so might as well make Arjun happy. And I posted it online, and someone who manages Dhoni's money saw that photo and asked him about me, and he said, yeah, I meet lots of people, but yeah, that's me in the photo, and that's this guy. And that's actually how the conversation started. So it started with me trying to help a friend with a photo, and it led to an investment from Dhoni, but that's the true story.
Yeah. And Sahil, you mentioned that playing competitive sport has taught you way more, both professionally and personally, than a classroom. So maybe a lesson or two, or could be mindsets that sports has taught you when you were building Sila.
Yeah. So, as an athlete, you train for countless hours, but then when you're in a match, you need to make in-game adjustments, right? And you're able to do that well if you've trained really hard, but there are always going to be things that don't go according to plan when you're playing a match, right? It's how your opponent reacts, the conditions, etc. And I think in business also you learn that, right? You learn that the business plan that you wrote will probably never go according to that plan. And it's about having the ability to make the adjustments, right? And problem solve. I wouldn't say on the fly, but over time, learn how to problem solve, which is super important. So that's one learning. The other is, grit. The ability to take defeat, take punches on the face, and then get up and then be motivated the next day to kind of keep going, right? I think that's super important. And as an athlete, I probably had as many losses as wins, and it teaches you to come back the next day and be motivated. And then the last thing is dealing with pressure, right? So there are going to be times in a business where things, as I said, don't go according to plan. You're dealing with various types of pressure, and to be able to be calm and know that there's always sunshine after dawn, and that it is going to be better next day, and be positive and proactive and move ahead. So I think there have been way more lessons, but I would point out these 2-3.
Yeah. And talking about real estate in general, Sahil, as we all know, the amount of roads, the amount of buildings, the infrastructure that's getting built in India. What are few opportunities or inefficiencies that you see in real estate that one could solve for?
So it's real estate as a sector, and there are various parts to it, right? We're doing something on facilities management, then there's advisory, there's development. There are various parts to real estate. So real estate as a sector, today, if you just look at the numbers, it's about 7% of GDP today in India. And in China, it's north of 20, right? So if you just look at the scale of the sector and the growth over the next couple of decades, even if India moves to double-digit percent of GDP, there's a huge growth, right? There's a lot of employment, there's a lot of growth in the sector. So the opportunity, and I always believe that you should be fishing in the right ponds, right? When you're doing a business, right? So we know that real estate as a sector is a sector that's scalable in whatever facet of real estate you pick. The challenges have been that it has been a sector, especially on the development side, where there's been a lack of transparency and trust between consumers and the service provider or the developers. And I think that is improving. There's been some reforms on the policy front. Plus, I think there are a lot of developers now who have a corporate mindset, who want to build this over, as an institutional setup, as opposed to just doing 1 or 2 buildings and moving in that direction. So I think as a sector, it has a lot of challenges in changing the mindset of the consumer. And I think the way to do it is to bring transparency, promise something, deliver exactly that. But the positive is that there's massive scale. And there's enough capital also available for developers to ensure that they have the capital required to meet that scale. But infrastructure development, government spending on infrastructure, these things will continue to happen. Urbanization is a trend that we're seeing constantly. Millions of people moving into cities, secondary business districts, peripheral business districts being created in various cities, massive infrastructure development to decongest cities and connect, the hinterland like Navi Mumbai and Mumbai, or in NCR, various parts of, Gurgaon going in, and Dwarka Expressway, etc. In Bangalore, you're seeing Bangalore move in various directions. So I think development in a country with 1.4 billion people and median age in the late 20s is inevitable. I think the mindset of the developers is changing, and the consumer hopefully will trust developers going forward.
Yeah. Talking about trust, and you mentioned this multiple times, where building the trust is very, very important. And I noticed that I think Sila has almost 98% retention rate. How were you able to build that trust?
So we do have a high contract retention rate, and the core of it is quality of service, right? So you may be a nice person, and you may smile and meet your clients, but if you're not delivering on the promise of the service they're paying you or contracting you for, that's not going to end well. So at the core, we spend a lot of time on making sure that the quality of service is where it should be, and many times there isn't, right? Many times there are customers who are not happy with the quality of service, but what we are is we're very proactive in solving or answering those concerns or inconveniences that customers have, right? So we're not the type of company who'll shy away from a problem at a site. We'll kind of tackle it head on, and that's really helped us.
And Sahil, what's the hardest thing about building in real estate?
You mean the development side or the...
Could be, you can pick anything that you want.
So on the development side, because we're focused on the South Mumbai market or Mumbai market, the hardest part is finding land, which is and they're all redevelopment projects. So it's a long cycle from identifying a plot, settling tenants, to breaking ground and then developing. So that journey, you need to be patient and not get impatient about the timelines, because that does take time. On the facilities and services side, the most challenging part is talent and recruitment of the right talent. I think we're getting better at that, but it isn't. Facilities management isn't a industry that is very cool to be working in, right? And for us to attract talent to do facilities management as opposed to someone working in, more cooler businesses like real estate sales or digital media or marketing or something, that those are all appear to be cooler. So facilities is a little boring business. So I think attracting good talent initially was challenging. It's getting easier as we scale and are building a brand, but I think we have different challenges in both businesses.
Yeah. You're right. Facility management is something, it's not that sexy, but at the same time, unsexy businesses where the real money or real value gets created.
They're great.
And Sahil, what's the magical outcome that you hold for Sila moving forward? I know that you mentioned you are planning to go public in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. So, we never started this with a goal or outcome in mind. I think that limits you. So I don't set, or I don't think my brother does either, or our senior leadership team, end goals, right? We have a 2 to 3 year goal, take the company public. On the development side, we have 2 to 3 year goals of a certain scale. But if I have to vision out what this would look like in the next 1 or 2 decades, we want to build a scalable real estate platform where we have services, development, and capital allocation capability sitting on one platform, which is end-to-end, comprehensive, and that's kind of what we're working towards.
A brand or a company that you look up to, Sahil?
Brookfield and Blackstone.
Got it. And Sahil, and I had a similar chat with Rushabh as well, where you folks didn't raise much capital, and you took some capital after I think 4 or 5 years. What was the philosophy around that, and an advice that you would want to give to entrepreneurs that are, let's say, looking to build a venture scalable business, how to go about raising capital?
Yeah. So, firstly, raising capital is not an achievement. I think raising capital is something that is seen as an achievement sometimes, and I keep reminding people that it goes on the liability side of the balance sheet, and you need to return it, right? So you need to raise the capital you require to build a business, and we didn't require that much capital to build a services B2B business, right? So we worked really hard to get a small business loan from Bank of Baroda to get this, working capital. That was really what that 80 lakhs, there was this one scheme that the government had come out with. And then I remember sitting and having cups of tea at the branch manager's cabin in Pratna Samaj to get that loan, right? So I was looking for that type of capital, right? We didn't need equity capital. So every business has a different capital stack and requirement. And I urge people to understand that, right? And if you don't have a background in finance, which we did, then speak to people about how to plan your cap table, because it may hurt you down the line if you went and raised a lot of equity for a business that did not require it at the wrong time, right? So we didn't require it is the short answer of why we didn't raise it. And when we did raise it, also we raised friends and family type of money because we wanted more patient capital. And then we only raised institutional capital, I think, in 2019, which is when Norwest Venture Partners and Samara Capital Group came in on the development side, because we knew at that time that, okay, we understand that these funds will have a 8 to 10 year life. And at that time, we'll be ready to give them an exit via a secondary or an IPO. So I think it was important, and I think we did reasonably well in planning the cap table and the capital requirements over the journey.
And Sahil, the kind of impact that you've created by coming back to India and build Sila, do you think you would have created impact similar to this if you had stayed back in the US?
No chance. When I was working at a hedge fund, I used to go to lots. I was an analyst covering stocks in the gaming, lodging, and cruise line universe. So my life took me to Vegas, Miami, and Macau, which was great as a 22-year-old. But when I was in those conversations, talking to other investors, I wasn't in the inner circle of the large funds, and I didn't have that network and relationships. And I think that's super important to get that asymmetric information, right? And I think that's required to start a business, right? Unless you are a genius software developer who's come up with a great idea, which on its own builds itself, which I wasn't. And I knew that wasn't something that we were going to build out in the tech space. That wasn't my interest. But to build out a relatively boring business, ground up, B2B, for us to do it in a market where we did not have the relationships, is the point I'm trying to make, would not be possible. We've been very fortunate to have great relationships and a network that we leveraged on to build Sila. And that for us was sitting in India. So I don't think I would have been able to do that in the US. The US is the land of opportunity, and I've seen a lot of my friends do very well out there. But for us, I think India was anyway a calling, as I said, being patriotic and wanting to move back home. And then the network and relationships were super helpful for us in building Sila.
Yeah. And look, I think you only mentioned where government launched this scheme or slogan, I would say, Incredible India, back in 2004 or something around that. But the slogan Incredible India is actually getting applied today. The real boom is what we are seeing today.
It was probably Inevitable India.
Inevitable India, correct.
Should have been that, yeah.
Yeah, Inevitable India. You've spent almost 15 years building Sila now. Things have changed in India, right? If you compare it to how it was when you had initially moved back. If you were to give advice to somebody who's, let's say, in their early 20s or early 30s, they're on the fence, what advice would you give them about India, and why do you think India could be the best time now to build?
I think, having done this journey and seen a lot of my friends who've stayed back there, right? I think the earlier you move back, the better, for a couple of reasons. One is your risk appetite is higher. And by moving back, you are taking a risk, right? Because you're probably leaving a job which is paying well in the US or in Europe or wherever you're working, and then you're coming back to an uncertain environment out here. So you need those years behind you where you're probably not married and settling down to take that risk, right? So the earlier the better, because your risk appetite is higher. And the second is the macro, right? The story in India is incredibly exciting. We're still a young nation. There's a lot of growth ahead of us. We have a very, very good demographic dividend in that, we're in our late 20s as a country, as a median age. So there's a lot of domestic consumption. So there are various industries and businesses that are growing at double digit, which one doesn't see in most economies. So one is, the first one is your risk appetite's higher, move back. And two is the macro story is not something that you can turn a blind eye to. It's real.
Yeah. And, as of now, we've mostly talked about the good parts. Sahil, I'm sure a lot of the time was spent in figuring things out, keeping things in place. What were the hardest moments for you while building Sila? Were there like few instances that were really hard, but that taught you very good lessons?
Yeah, so there are various parts of the journey which are hard in a business like ours, where you're operating and maintaining millions of square feet of real estate. So there are tons of operational challenges that we have at all times, and I think the getting this off the ground with convincing people that we had the ability to do the service and then building it steadily was one challenge at one part, and then taking it from a certain level of 100 crore revenue to 1,000 is a different challenge and journey. So we've had challenges there. We made lots of mistakes. We in 2015 tried to get into a B2C service called Mr. Home Care, thinking that we'll do it, but that was a big mistake. And in 3-4 months we burnt more money than we did in 5 years of Sila. So that was a lesson that we learned, and we had raised some external capital, and we were able to give those investors shares in the facilities company so that no one lost their money, and they are happy investors with us even today. So we've made errors, we've made mistakes, but I think what we've been very cognizant about is our balance sheet at all times, right? So we've never, touch wood, and I hope it doesn't happen, been in a cash trap position, right? We've never not made salaries on time, right? Even if there are 10,000 employees or 30,000 today, salaries will go on time. So we've been extremely prudent about thinking through our balance sheet, cash flows as a business. But there have been growth challenges and client challenges and various those aspects that we faced along the way. But a lot of my learning and my brothers is that we didn't touch upon this, but our family business growing up went through a significant downturn, right? So in our early teens, we saw a very comfortable life go to not so comfortable life and bankruptcy and all of those proceedings with our family business. So I think the grounding is to be risk averse and conservative with how we build our company, because we've seen what happens when you lose something, right? So I think that's been probably our grounding, and that's why we've been more prudent about how we've raised capital, how we've spent money, how we bootstrap for many years.
And what are a few non-negotiable values that you have at Sila?
So our values at Sila are, and we call it our PhD, which is proactive, honest, and developing relationships. And I think all these three are non-negotiable, right? People at Sila need to be ready to, be proactive, live with ambiguity in the role because we're growing quite fast. Honesty, transparency. We have a town hall every month where we discuss with few hundred employees of ours or whoever joins the call, numbers, data, projections. So we're very transparent as an organization, right? We don't feel the need to hide anything, challenges or positive news from anyone. So I think that's a core part of our culture. And then I've touched upon this few times in this conversation, is that our relationships have been super helpful for us to get here, right? Whether it's friends, family, well-wishers, mentors. So I think developing strong relationships, and this is not networking, right? I believe that networking gets you business cards, but really investing in relationships gets you business and learnings, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that I think has been core to our value.
Got value. And when you say investing in relationships, What does that mean? Or maybe give an example or two. Maybe through that you were able to, let's say, acquire customers, or a real life examples.
Being you know when you have a relationship, it's not with an outcome based approach, right? I'm not meeting you because I want some business of yours, right? So that's what nurturing relationships is, right? The subcontractor who I contracted my first CCTV job in September 2009, even today is my subcontractor, and his mobile number I still know by heart. So Mr. Kumar is a relationship of mine. Now CCTV is not even 0.1% of my revenue, but I value that relationship, right? The person, Mr. Dave, who stood with us as a security guarding supervisor, we still give him some work, right? So those are relationships, and those are when we started business. But we have large clients who've been investors with us, relationships. So I just feel that being honest and not having an outcome-based approach to any interaction is what I mean, developing relationships.
Yeah, no, I noticed, I think there are a bunch of employees that you nurtured them within the organization. I think one of them, I don't remember the name, he started off as an office boy, ended up becoming assistant manager or something. Maybe a story or two on that side.
Yeah, so Ramu, the office boy you're talking about, has grown. He was, to be honest, he helped us register the company Sila, and now he owns stock in the company and has grown through the ranks. And there are many stories like Ramu, but being employee number one, he comes to mind. But there are tons of other stories, people who've come to join Sila as security supervisors, and now one of them heads compliance and payroll for us, right? He came to us as a job to be a security supervisor, and he's been with us now, I think 12, 13 years or maybe longer. So there are tons of stories and wins, and these are the ones we cherish, and we hope there'll be many more.
Yeah. Moving to the last section, Sahil, what are you most obsessed about these days outside of work?
So I recently we had our second child. So Supriya, my wife, and I now have 2 kids. So spending time with my daughter and son is the current obsession. This age, I realize, doesn't come back. I've seen my son, he's 5 years old now. That moved quick. So I'm trying to cherish time with my 6-month-old. And that's something that I really cherish and enjoy right now. And then a constant obsession of mine will always be sport.
Yeah.
So it's my outlet, and I try and play sport at least 3-4 times a week, if not more. And it oscillates between golf, squash, paddle, and pickleball sometimes.
Yeah.
But I love playing sports, so I spend a lot of time on the sports field.
Yeah, I've still not tried pickleball or paddle. I should soon. Who's better at squash, you or Rushabh? By the way, I have Rushabh's number, so I can verify.
Yeah, so I urge you to call him and verify it. The answer is very clear.
But for the audience.
No, I'm a better squash player than him, and I think I'm a better sportsman than him. So my brother and I usually don't have arguments at work, and if we do, it's healthy. But there are a lot of friends we play sport with who want to watch us compete because we're not the same on a sports field. We argue, we fight, we compete hard, and then we're both quite competitive. So I think I'm a better sportsman in general. He will not agree that, and I'm happy he doesn't, because that keeps us competitive.
Yeah. And Sahil, what have you changed your mind on recently? Are there a few things?
Yeah, so I turned 40 recently, and I think the role that I'm playing now in our businesses is on how can I kind of be a risk manager at the same time of looking to scale this platform. So on the work front, I think I'm spending a lot of my time on how can we efficiently scale this while protecting what we've built and solidifying the foundation. And on the personal front, I and this has happened over the last year or two, where I'm trying to balance work and personal life more, and maybe having 2 kids now helps push in that direction involuntarily. But I think that if one wants to work for the next 40 years, which I plan to, it's important to have that balance, right? And I think I'm being conscious about that. We don't work 7 days a week. We're very focused at Sila to make sure it's a 5-day work week, and that people get their time off. I think that it helps improve the productivity in the 5 days that you're here. So that work-life balance is something I've been working on the personal front. And I think I do a reasonably good job of that, but I wish to continue.
Yeah. And 3 dinner guests, dead or alive, you could invite anybody. Who would they be and why?
For me, it will all be sportsmen.
Yeah.
Dhoni will definitely be one of them.
Yeah. You've had dinner with him?
I haven't had dinner with him, but we've caught up for a conversation last month, or probably it was last month. Dhoni would definitely be one of them. I'm a huge fan of Messi, I've been a Barcelona supporter all my life, and Argentina too. So I think Messi would definitely be another. And then I've had many squash players who I've admired over the ages, and I think Rami Ashur, who's a squash player who I really we played together when I was a junior, and then I've seen him become one of the top athletes in our sport. Would be the third, but definitely all 3 sportsmen. I don't know what my wife will feel about those 3 guests, but she knows I would only invite sportsmen.
Yeah, and nobody from golf. I think golf is the new obsession.
Golf is my new obsession. Yeah. I could rattle 30 dinner guests that I would want, but I try to pick one from each sport.
Yeah. Sahil, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and really walking us through your journey of being the national champion at squash, and now building one of the largest facility management real estate firm and real estate development as well, and about to go public, which is phenomenal. It's a story to be told. Hopefully at some point you'll either write a book where you can inspire a lot of athletes actually to really excel at different ventures in their life outside of sports. And you're could be one of the best examples out there. I've not really, nothing comes to mind in India, like somebody, let's say, who was so good at a particular sport and also phenomenally good at whatever they did after the sports.
No, it's been, there's a deep sense of gratitude in being able to do this. In entrepreneurship, it takes a lot of the ducks to line up for something to be built at this scale. And for us, I think that, the foundation is laid, and we hope that we can continue this. And we're really excited about the journey ahead. And we're grateful for what we've had as a journey, but appreciate the time. Thank you for having me on your show, and good luck to you and the future podcasts and episodes and other things that you're doing in your journey as an investor. It's great to see you also come back from the US, move back. Moving back is not an easy decision, and then investing in companies in the ecosystem that you do and mentoring some of them. So congratulations and good luck to you too.
Thank you.